by this guy, Travis Brown, who's one of the best in the world. And he wanted to talk about it on the air. He wanted to talk about what we felt like on the air. And I asked him if you sure. He was like, yeah, absolutely. I want to get it out there. I want to get it out there. I want to hear exactly what you really think. And I mean, I'm sure what he thought I would think and what I did think was different. And then as we were talking, I kind of realized like this, like I feel like his perceptions of where he's at and the dangers of what has happened to him and the reality of where he's at and the dangers of what have happened to him were off. And some people feel like I should have done that conversation off the air, and I feel like I probably agree with you. All things said and done, the only good thing about having it on the air is that other fighters can hear this and they can form I want to say educated opinion, because I'm definitely not a doctor or a scientist or even smart, but I know a lot of information about chronic brain damage from seeing it, from talking to people who have it, from talking to doctors who are experts on it, and to know that I don't see a lot of people that are at the front of the tunnel waving a light in MMA saying, hey, you guys got to slow the fuck down. We don't know what's up here. Right. And I think that that's the case with chronic brain damage. NFL is just dealing with now these players from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and even the 2000s that are just fucked up now. I wanted him to consider ending it. He was talking before this fight about like when he's going to get out. After the fight, he talked about 2 years, that he had a 4-fight, 2-year idea. The reality of getting head trauma is that it's cumulative, and that guys who get knocked out a few times, it becomes easier for them to get knocked out again. Right. And the damage is all compounding. You're waiting. It's like buying a bunch of shit on credit. You're waiting for the bill to come, and you're driving around this nice car, and you have this cool watch, but the reality is you owe a fuckload of money, and you're going to have to work your dick off to pay that shit. You're not thinking about that right now. Right. Well, the chronic brain damage thing is a debt that you can never pay. Like, you're putting damage on your brain that doesn't manifest itself immediately always. It takes a while. A lot of these players were fine when they retired, and then you're seeing them like Jim McMahon. Did you see the Sports Illustrated article on him? Oh, dude, it's terrifying. When I was a kid, I didn't know shit about football, but I know who Jim McMahon was. He was a goddamn legendary quarterback, him and the Bears and that whole, they did the Super Bowl shuffle, everybody knew who those guys were. He's Fucksville now. He like will find himself in the middle of his house not knowing how he got there. He's just looking for his keys or looking for what he doesn't know what he was going to do. He forgets things all the time. I was talking to Brian Stan. We were text messaging back and forth today, and he was talking about people that he knows that got it from being soldiers, from blasts. And he's like, it's horrible. It's horrible. Like, these guys, they can't remember anything. They have no energy. They're depressed all the time. Yeah. It's not everybody, and it's not, there's the thing about fighting is you never know when it's too late. It's like some guys can get knocked out once and go on from that to have great careers. Some guys can get knocked out a couple of times, but they're still in the running. They're just fighting beasts. Like, perfect example of that is Michael Bisping. Gets knocked out by Dan Henderson, comes back, very successful, gets knocked out by Vitor Belfort, comes back after that, beats the shit out of Kung Lee in one of the best fights of his career. Like he's been KO'd a couple of times, but it's only because he's fighting the elite of the elite at the top of the level, and he's just smidgen off. That's it. Michael Bisping is one of the best in the fucking world. But I felt like with Schaub, I was seeing that it was going to happen more often. Right. And I fucking love that dude. He is a great guy. Brendan Schaub is a really interesting character because he's this big, hulking dude, but he's a sweetheart. He's like the nicest guy. He jokes around about how he's like a dolphin in a shark outfit. Like, he looks like a shark on the outside, but he's a dolphin on the inside. He's hilarious. He's really honest. He's like really honest about everything except like his fighting ability. I think his fighting ability or his position, he's got a slightly elevated sense. But that's why he's a bad motherfucker. You have to have this sense that's almost distorted in order to be a fighter in the first place. Because when you first start out, how could you imagine ever getting to a championship level? When you first start out and you're getting hit every time you move forward, and you're getting taken down every time someone wants you to, it's weird. It takes a long time. So you have to have like almost this like crazed idea of yourself to be a fighter in the first place. It's just extreme confidence. And, he's got that for sure. And there's a lot of fighters who have that. It's great when you're winning. When you're winning, that extreme confidence is awesome, because that extreme confidence like gives you like a boost over some other people who don't have that. You might have like a psychological boost. Maybe it's in training, maybe it's in how confident you feel before the fight so you don't get as nervous as he does. There's all sorts of variables. But when you start losing, that's when that can be a motherfucker, because that thing doesn't want to see the truth. That ego is a tricky motherfucker, because it can help you in a lot of ways. It can push you to success, but it can also fuck you up where you're not seeing yourself the way you should. You can't. Like you don't see yourself in a negative way. You don't allow it in. So you don't look at the flaws. You don't look at, like, especially true in martial arts, which is like a hyper critical. You have to be extremely self-critical